We're meeting today, we're meeting on Wednesday, and then we're meeting on Friday for about 3 hours. And Friday will include our feedback interview, which we'll be scheduling for 15 minutes. What to expect over the course of the 3 days. Here are some learning objectives. On Monday, today, we're going to be seeing that societies have developed many money creation systems and that we do have choices. Today will also be about understanding how systems that create money, how they work, and how they are different from economic systems, because the two often get confused. On Wednesday, we'll be looking at how today's money creation systems actually work in the present time and why they are causing so many problems. And then on Friday, we're going to be looking at how money creation systems have changed in the past and how they can be again changed today. For today's program, we're finishing up the goals where we're doing the agenda now, and we'll in a moment share a little bit more from the team, tell you about our goals and our guidelines. Then we're going to be doing a game called Where Could Money Come From, where you get to be the judge of many different choices. After the break, we'll have Monetary Systems 101 and have a discussion about why is it that we can't create more money before we close off. So that's today. So you might be wondering, what is this Money Justice Collaborative team that we've been talking about? So we just want to tell you, we are a new non-for-profit focused on teaching about national monetary systems and how they operate and how to change them in ways that actually promote economic well-being for all. And here's our team. 3 of us are here, and Benji, his role is more as an assistant researcher, and so his work is more behind the scenes, and that's why he's not with us today. And as we mentioned, Amy is with us as a facilitator in training. So at this point, we're going to share a little bit more about who we are and why it is that we do this work. So Sam's going to stop the share. Okay, so I'm going to go first. I'll share a little bit about myself on a more personal level. So I grew up in an immigrant family. My parents came from Korea to Canada when I was a child. And my family struggled with money. We just didn't have enough. And it's strange watching watching yourself. Okay, I'm gonna put myself on speaker or on gallery view. So from a very early age, I got the message: work hard, work hard, work hard. And if you're not succeeding or getting ahead, that only means one thing. Can you guess what that is? That you're not working hard enough and that you need to work harder. And for, I will say honestly, for many years, that is what I did, and that came at a high cost. Professionally, I was a classroom teacher and a frontline worker with new immigrants and refugees. I did that for about 25 years. And something that I saw, I loved my job and I loved the people that I met. And something that I experienced was that the systems that were set up to support people, in this case, immigrants and refugees, often worked against them. On a more personal level, I'm going to share that I've been a primary caregiver for my father, who is elderly and has dementia. And I think for an audience of women rethinking economics, the piece about the caregiving work, the domestic and reproductive labor that largely falls on women's shoulders, I think it's important to name how those things are not paid, not valued, and basically invisible in the current society. And yet, these caregiving roles that we often play is so absolutely essential to the well functioning of our families and our communities and really the rest of the economy. So, for my caring for my dad, again, I came up against systems that was supposed to help people in need, but didn't and fell very, very short. And so you may be wondering, what's somebody like me doing monetary work? And I have to tell you, I ask that question myself every day. I am the least likeliest person to be doing this work. Um, but the origin story, it really was an accident where I kind of stumbled upon the monetary system through my climate activism. And that was because I was looking for what's underneath the surface. What's at the root of what's going on that maybe could, help alleviate the things that so many things that are ailing society today. And so here I am. And
Kumain
from
gusto jauh.
from what I have learned over the last 7 years, being a part of various organizations that you read in my bio in the welcome letter, I have come to the conclusion that um, monetary systems, there's something very cool about that particular system because it is the enabler. Monetary systems allow more to be possible with other systems. And so my hope is that by the end of the workshop and our time together, you'll have a better sense of what I mean by that. So that's me in a nutshell. I will pass it to Sam, and then we'll hear from Natalee after that. So Sam.
Great. Thanks, Bayon. Yeah, I have a very different background. I grew up at a dinner table where I remember being terrorized by my dad banging on the table and telling us that our family had lost everything in 3 different financial crises and crashes. And that was very scary to me. And I think it's why my dad chose to go into finance, was that he wanted to protect his family from those stories of having lost home, business, savings, and so on. So at that dinner table, I also learned a lot about finance and economics growing up. And when I went into the working world, there was the dot-com crash, which many of you probably don't remember. There was also the 2008 crash. And when these things happened, I was panicking more than anybody around me because of these fears and experiences. And so I spent a lot of time, particularly during the 2008 crisis, learning about economics and in particular our money system. And I was telling everybody around me that money is being created all the time in a way that creates these crises. They don't need to happen. We don't need to have poverty, unemployment, or any of these things. And most people thought that I was crazy. And so after a couple of years, I gave up and I kind of put it out of my mind because it was too emotionally painful being unsupported by the people around me. And then in 2020, with the COVID crisis, I decided, if there was ever a time that we should create money in order to provide people a secure income, this is the time. People were losing their homes, their businesses, their health insurance, their jobs. And it made me really sad and mad that that wasn't happening. So I decided to look and see who was advocating today for changes on that front. And I discovered that the conversation had completely changed since 2008. There are lawyers at Harvard, economists at Oxford and Cambridge, and all of these places, they're very credible, at central banks and so on, that are saying that this system needs to change now, and talking about the problems associated with it. So my goal I'm now a graduate student at Duke University, and is to try and bring that information out into the mainstream, and participating in this collaborative is the most hopeful way that I'm trying to be part of that.
Thanks, Sam. And thank you, Bo Young. All right, so I was born on the island of Jamaica. That's where I am right now. I moved to the US about 18 years ago, and so now I'm between Jamaica and the US. When I moved to the US, went to college there, ended up working in a big corporate company, doing communication strategy to sell products. Learned a lot there, grew professionally, personally, but something always felt missing for me. And it's because it didn't feel as though I was really helping people. So there's an important value that I have that guides my life, that I'm contributing to healing, I'm contributing to people having better lives, and it didn't feel like that job was providing that. And so I ended up moving into other spaces in terms of career. I worked in the nonprofit sector in a company that focused on economic development for cities across the US. I worked in coaching companies that connected people who had visions of writing books and starting businesses with mentors and coaches who could support them with doing that. I worked in startups. I have worked and continue to work as a birth doula. Feel really passionate about supporting women in their healing. And it's funny, like you can hear the trembling in my voice. So when the stream of faces was coming on screen, I actually started crying and I had to go off camera because it was so beautiful to see you all represented from all across the world, and I just could not hold it. So I was like, I'm going. And you can hear the passion in Sam's voice, in Boyan's voice. And so just know that we care very deeply about the work that we're doing. A big part of the work that I do right now is emotional healing with women. So if someone has gone through something really painful, really traumatic, I support them in that healing journey. And I do that through coaching and through somatic, or what's called embodiment healing. So connecting emotions to the body and releasing that trauma in that way. Met Sam about a year ago as we were exploring some non-traditional eco-village living and learned about the work that he's been doing. And felt connected to the root cause of a lot of the problems in the world. I mentioned the healing work that I do, and I realized that it's the repair, right? It's treating the symptoms and also the repair. And getting to the root cause, it was like, oh, so if we get to that, then one, people can get to their healing much more quickly. And two, we can prevent the harm to begin with. And so doing this work really feels like an integral part that holds all of the other work that I've been doing, because it connects me to the reason why the harm is being created in the first place. And another big value in my life is leaving this world better than it's here now, like better than I came and see it, better for my nieces, my nephews, for the next generation. And so really happy to be here. And yeah, excited for all that will unfold today. So why do we care so much about money creation? Why are we here? The reason why we care so much about money creation is that trillions and trillions of dollars are being created and added to the global economy every single year. And it's far more than most people realize. We believe that changing how that money is created can solve many problems, in part by funding the work needed to address those problems. We also acknowledge that transforming our national money system is not a miracle solution that will solve all the problems. We really see it as a lever which means that it can stop harms and increase our capacity to address those harms. And this can accelerate our work towards well-being for all. All right, so in terms of our team's goals, what we want to see is all creation and deletion of money from the economy immediately be made 100% transparent to the public. Today, those trillions of dollars are being added and deleted from the global economy year after year, and those are largely invisible. And we believe that it should be made fully visible. We also want to see immediate relief provided to those who have been marginalized by discrimination in the money creation process. And this could look like many different things, but a couple of examples could include debt relief, guaranteed full employment, and wages that ensure that people have a dignified living. And then finally, because today's money systems are central to our economies and communities, we want to see them carefully and deliberately transformed through transparent and stakeholder inclusive processes at every level, from local to global. And the goal of transforming them is to ensure that the money systems support well-being for all, that those systems are fair, stable, sustainable, and publicly accountable. So we recognize that those are some pretty big goals for our small team, especially because achieving those goals require changing laws, not just in one country, but in many countries, because our national money systems are so globally interconnected. And we obviously would not have brought you here together if we didn't think that there is a way to achieve those goals. So we're continually developing and refining a strategy that we believe can attract the kind of attention and political power that's necessary. And we'll tell you more about our strategy for change on Friday.
We're going to play a game, and the more you can just be imaginative with it and enjoy it, the more fun it'll be. And it's going to be educational at the same time. So we like to play a little game that we call Where Could Money Come From? Oh, let me count the ways. You probably know it's true that money doesn't grow on trees. We hear that a lot. And the reason it doesn't is because it can't. Money is a human invention. There are no birds or bees that use dollars or yen or euros. So anytime we have a society with money, each one of the monies that is in that society, it had to come from somewhere. So even when money was based on shells or bushels of wheat or gold, it was humans that decided that one particular shell or one amount of wheat or one piece of gold would count as a unit of money. And over time, humans have figured out dozens of ways to create the units of money that their societies have used. And what this means is that we have choices about how money could be created today. Lots of choices. We think it's really important to recognize that the way money is created today is just one of many choices. And so we want to start by sharing those with you and putting the way money is created today in that context of all the creativity that humans have brought to this challenge in the past. So, in fact, when you look at history, there are so many choices of ways that humans have invented money that it can feel overwhelming when you first learn about money creation systems. And fortunately, many of the various ways of creating money that you'll hear about now and in the future and in the past are just variations on themes. And so there are a dozen or so major money creation systems that we're aware of. And so to keep things simple today, we're going to show you just 5 ways of creating money that societies have really used. And I see my slide says 6, but it's 5. And as we tell you about each of these methods of creating money, we're going to play a little game. You be the judge is how we're going to play this game. Each of you are going to be a judge, giving scores between 0 and 10 on how much you would like to live in a society that creates money in each of those 5 ways. And we think you're going to see that you are up to the task. This is not something that we need to leave to the experts the way we are led to believe, right? We get these messages that it's too complicated, or only economists and people in finance are smart enough to have informed opinions about how money should be created. By playing this game, we think you're going to see that you can understand it and that you do have opinions about it. So as I said, the question that we are going to be judging for each option is, how great do you think it would be to live in a society that makes money that way? And so 10 is, it would be great. And 1 is, it would be terrible. And so at the end of the game, you're going to have 5 scorecards like this, and you'll hold one of them up at a time so that we can see everyone's scores for each option. And it's just really important to say that there are no correct scores. There are lots of different money creation systems, and some people like certain ones more than others. Okay, looks like everybody's good. Okay, great. So yeah, some people like certain systems better than others. All of us are shaped by different life experiences and cultures and values. So it actually would be strange if we did all think the same way. So in fact, within our team, we don't even rate them the same. We think that there are multiple options that could work well, and certainly better than what we have today. So we are not selling any one of these. So all of that is to say is that the purpose of this game is simply for you to notice that you can understand this money creation stuff, and that you do have preferences about it too. So that's what success looks like. Sound good? Cool. Also, we're going to run through these 5 ways that humans have created money at a fairly quick pace. So please don't worry about keeping track of everything. You do not need to take notes because you're not going to be tested on this later. This is a game after all. And one of the reasons you don't need to keep track of them or take notes is that this game isn't about comparing one option to another. Your task is simply to imagine what it would be like to live in a society where money was created in each of these ways, and note your reaction to that way on a 0 to 10 scale, where 10 means you imagine it would be totally great, right? And 0 is it would be terrible. Okay. And in school, there's so much attention given to us using our minds that we encourage you to use your instinct instead, or in addition to that today. So listen to what you're feeling in your body as you imagine each of these options. There's a lot of wisdom in our bodies. All right, here we go. So we're going to tell you some stories of how money has actually been created in different societies. And there are human societies that have created money in each of these ways. To make it simple, our stories, though, are all going to be told in one fictional town. And this town will probably not look like your town, because we can't make one town that looks like every town in the world. So we're sorry about that. Hopefully you can use your imagination. We're going to describe how each of these money creation systems would work if you lived in this imaginary town, and just try to imagine how that would be. And as you do, notice what you feel. Do you feel excited or anxious or curious? And when it comes time to write down your score, just go with your first instinct. There's no need to overthink it, because remember, there are no right answers. Okay, so welcome home. After many years away in the big city, you have returned to your beloved hometown of Farmville to see if you want to move back to be closer to all your friends and family that you grew up with. The town has so many of the places you remember and love, like the stream and the fields that you grew up playing in. There's Frank's grocery store that's now run by Frank's son, Frank, who you went to school with. There's the Tractor Supply building that has gotten upgraded, which is great for all the farmers in town. There's the movie theater where you had your first kiss. And then there is your favorite part of Farmville, really everyone's favorite part, the annual Tomato Festival, a big celebration for Farmville's farmers who are famous for growing the most and best tomatoes in the country. So the more you think about it, the more you love Farmville and think you want to move back. There's just one big problem. There is no money in Farmville. Zero. But it's not just Farmville. There's actually no money in the entire country because something really strange happened. Overnight, it all just disappeared. Every bill, every coin, every number in every bank account, all the money just disappeared. So the people of the country that Farmville is in have to figure out how to create all new money. And the good news is that humans have come up with lots of ways to create money. So the citizens of this fine country have choices. Okay, here comes the first story. Option A, clear your minds, get in your imagination mode. Let's begin. And these are going to go from options that you're probably more familiar with to options that you're probably less familiar with. So that's the order that we've chosen. Okay, metal money. Just as a note, the names of these options are in quotes because the technical literature describing these types of money systems vary widely in the terms that they use to describe different types of money. So for example, types of money that we would put under the name metal money are often called things like commodity money or coined money or bimetal money. And so we've chosen names that we hope are simple to understand. And if you want a more complete list of the technical terms used to describe these, we can provide them. Okay, so in a metal money, money is created from gold, silver, copper, iron, or some other metal. So how would the creation of metal money work to replace all the money that magically disappeared in Farmville? Well, it just so happens that a couple of hours up the road from Farmville, there's a mining town that has a gold deposit in the rock under the town. So they decide to dig up the gold and make it into coins that can be the country's new money. In other words, the money is created out of gold, or to say it more precisely, the amount of money created is determined by how much gold there is in the ground and how fast mining town residents want to dig it up and turn it into coins. Now, the fact that all money is created by the mining town means that for you and anyone in Farmville to get any of this money, you have to produce something to sell to the people in the mining town. Either that, or you have to borrow money from them at interest. Since the people of the mining town only want a little bit of tomatoes, you and your Farmville neighbors have to stop growing so many tomatoes in order to produce the products that the people of mining town want. So here is the question for you, our dear judges. And again, let me recommend that you just trust your gut. On a scale from 1 to 10, with 10 being the awesomest, how great would it be to live in Farmville with this system of money creation? And just give me a thumbs up when you have your score ready. Thank you. Awesome. Okay. Are we ready for the next story? Great. So we have an entirely new story coming. So release thoughts about the last one, relax your body, refresh your emotions. Here we go. So in option number 2, we have government money. The money is created by the government to be spent, lent, or granted. Farmville is just one town inside of a bigger nation. And so when all the money disappears overnight, the national government decides to solve the problem by issuing a national currency. They spend this new money into the economy, buying goods and services to pay for the building of roads and schools and hospitals. They also give out loans from newly created money, such as to small business entrepreneurs like yourself. And finally, the government also gives grants to states and towns to spend on their needs. The government tries its best to spread the money evenly between communities so that no one feels they are getting more or less. Now, occasionally, the country goes to war with other countries, at which time the government uses the new money to pay soldiers and buy weapons. Your friend, Frank, gets drafted, but at least he's going to get paid for his service. So again, here's the question, our dear judges. on a scale of 1 to 10, how great would it be to live in Farmville with this system of money creation? Don't think too hard about it. Just go with your instinct and just give me a thumbs up when you're ready for the next story. Awesome. So, entirely new story coming. Release thoughts about the last one, relax your body, clear your emotions. Okay. Private money. Money is created and lent out by private companies. So, thinking about the best way to spur economic growth, the people of Farmville decide that it would be good to have money created for economic development. And that means putting money in the hands of home buyers and entrepreneurs. So to do this, the government gives special money creation licenses to privately owned companies. And these companies have permission to legally create new money anytime someone comes to them wanting to borrow money, as long as they destroy the money once it's repaid. And they're allowed to charge interest on the money they create and lend out. So not all of it is destroyed because they keep the interest that they collect. That's how they make a profit. So they are trusted to invest money in things that are going to make Farmville better. So when you move back to Farmville to start that cafe that you've always been dreaming of, you'll go to this company and they'll create a loan of the amount that you need to start the cafe. And when you buy a home to move back to Farmville, you'll go to them and they'll create the money for you to buy the home. Now, there are many industrious people in Farmville like you, so the money creating company does very good business. After a while, people notice that everyone is in debt. And that's because in this system, money is only created when someone goes into debt, which means that if everyone could pay off their debts, there would be no money. So again, how great would it be to live in Farmville with your economic development funded by money creation that works like this? Yeah, all right, great. It's a little easier now as we're getting in the rhythm. Okay, all right, entirely new story coming. Release your thoughts about the last one, relax, refresh your emotions. All right, the next one is called special purpose money. And that is money that is created to ensure essential goods are distributed fairly and sufficiently. So the country that Farmville is part of decides that it wants to ensure that everyone gets a sufficient and fair share of basic necessities, such as food and fuel. So every month they issue to everyone special purpose money called food credits or fuel credits, for example. And people can spend their credits, for example, anywhere that food is sold, including at your cafe that you established. And to make this work, the government employs many people to go around and talk to farmers and importers to find out what they need to supply an abundance of food and how much money or how much food there will be in the future and how many credits need to be created to match that. And the government also issues general purpose money that people can earn and spend on non-food items. But if they want to use that money to buy food, they must first convert it into food credits, since food credits are how the government makes sure that everyone has gotten enough food before anyone gets more. So again, here's the question. How great would it be to live in Farmville with this system of money creation, where there are special purpose monies operating alongside the general purpose monies? Yeah, and just give me a thumbs up when you're ready. Cool. Looks like most folks are ready here. Okay, last story. So entirely new story too. So release the thoughts, relax your body, take a breath, refresh your emotions, get your instinct meter recalibrated. So this one is called public money, and it's when money is created with citizen input by a publicly owned nonprofit. And the newly created money can be lent, spent, or granted into the economy. So for example, in Farmville, that could look like a nonprofit, let's call it Farmville Foundation, that hosts community meetings several times a year to find out what citizens want to do that is currently unfunded. If the workers, the material, and the knowledge required to do those things are available, and the only thing stopping it is a shortage of money, then they can create new money to pay for the workers, the material, and the expertise. There are three ways they can put newly created money into the economy. They can lend it to a local entrepreneur like you opening your cafe, or they can spend it directly, for example, on affordable housing, or they can grant it, for example, by giving the community health clinic that you and everyone in the town uses a grant to buy new equipment. So again, here's the question on a scale of 1 to 10, how great would it be? Just give me a thumbs up when you're ready. Okay, so just to recap, here are all the options. We had metal money that's created as from a metal. We have government money that's created by the government and spent, lent, or granted. We have private money, which is created and lent out by private companies. We have money that's created to distribute essential resources fairly, and public money that's created with citizen input by a publicly owned nonprofit and spent, lent, or granted into the economy. So how did it go? Remember that I said our goal was simply to experience that we can understand different methods of money creation and that we do have choices and that we have preferences about them. Raise your hand if you had any of those experiences. Can you give us a thumbs up or show of hands? Nice, cool. All right, I'm really glad to hear that. That was the goal.
All right, thank you for guiding us through that game. Okay, so digestion time. Just receive all of that, let all of that settle. And now we're going to pause, reflect, journal quietly. So we'll have about 4 minutes to do that. And really the question that we invite you to explore is, how did it feel as we were going through that options? What emotions came up for you? And also, what concerns did you have with each of those options that led to those emotions? So about 4 minutes to reflect on that quietly and to journal as well. And if there are questions coming up for you, you're also welcome to add those to the chat. Awesome. Some really great comments here in the chat. Thank you for those. So one of the things that we said earlier is that there is no right or wrong answer. However you score, it really is a reflection of what your values are, what's important to you, and what you want to see in a money creation system. So I love that we get to see some of the values that you hold. I think we can transition now to looking at the scores from the group. So a few things to keep in mind as we're looking at the scores. Please do not judge your responses by what other people put. There really are no correct answers. Your scores on their own are valid. They're the ones that are true for you. Everyone scores differently. Again, everyone's experience, culture, and value is what will lead to what those scores look like. And even as a team, we score differently based on our values, our culture. Bring it up to the screen so that you can also still see the scores of other people. So close to the camera so we can see it, and so that you can also see the scores of other people, just looking at the diversity that's in the room. And Sam is actually going to capture all of the scores. Okay, cool. Perfect timing. Welcome back, all. I'm seeing some smiles. Looks like there were some engaging discussions happening in the breakout rooms. It's always funny how people come back smiling. I love it. All right, so now we're actually going to show the average scores.
So, like I said, we as a team are not pushing any particular option because we believe that nations and their citizens should get to choose together the option that they like best. And the first step towards that is seeing if community members have preferences for any of these options. So the purpose of looking at the averages from our scores today is just to see, can that work? Can a group like this one have a leaning towards any of these options? That's the purpose. So please do not compare your answers to the average answer. The purpose of sharing these averages is not for you or anyone to judge whether you chose correctly. That said, you're welcome to be curious about each other's answers and the averages and so on, and we invite you to do that here. What you can see here is on the left, we have the scale from 1 to 10, 10 being the greatest. And then across the bottom, we have the 5 options in the order that you heard them, along with the descriptions of what each one is. And what you can see is that collectively, at least on average, we do have some shared preferences. However, if you look at the high and the low, which is down at the bottom, the range from people who really liked one or really disliked another is quite large. And so this is interesting. It explains in part why money and money creation is so tricky. We are all coming from different backgrounds, experiences, countries with different levels of corruption or government that we can trust or not trust. And so getting to a consensus on how money should be created is very difficult for good reason. But even within that, we can see that very few people liked option C, the private money option. And it makes me laugh that every single time we do this, zeros appear, which is not part of the scale from 1 to 10. And it just is fun. So the lowest score was 0, and the highest score on that one is 8. And what we can see is that while we don't all agree, there was a leaning. So the last 2 options, special purpose money and public money, kind of stood out from the rest on the positive scale. So I want to pause there and ask you, what do you notice looking at these? Are there any observations you'd want to share with the group, or questions you may have for others in the group who may have scored things differently from you? I do want to share at this point that tomorrow we will be getting into how our money is created today. And today, in most countries, most of the money is created using option C, which is private money created by private companies. And how that is, why that is, like I said, is something we'll get into in detail tomorrow. But we're not trying to hold that out as a mystery. We just wanted to come into this from a different way. And before we get to that, also, we want to kind of continue in the next section with preparing you to be money system designers. And there's going to be a little bit more about how we interpret these systems and compare them with each other, again, before we get to looking at our specific system today. So let me just finish out one little piece of this, which came up in the themes that you just shared, which is that with any of these ways of creating money, how they are actually implemented, the details matters a lot and can vary a lot, right? So, for example, with that government money option, you could have it implemented in a way that's very centralized, or something where all the decisions are made by local governments. Or you could have it where it's very transparent, in which everyone can see what money is being created for. Maybe it's being published on a website. Or you could have it something that's very secretive, right? Or you could have a government creating money that's a democratic government that really cares about the needs of the people. Or you could have an authoritarian government that is using money creation to exercise control, right? And this is true for any money creation option, where say, money is being created with citizen input by a publicly owned nonprofit that can lend, spend, or grant money into the economy, the exact same thing is true. You can have people discriminate, and local discrimination, for example. And so moving it to the local level doesn't necessarily solve that problem, right? So really, one of my favorite things to think about in the world is something called polarity management. And it's where there's a method for how do we figure out how do we get the best of both of these without the worst of both of them. And that is the challenge, because this is just a tricky situation. And this is part of why we wanted to open this with this game, is to kind of put ourselves in the minds of money system designers looking at a tricky situation before we look into the way money is created today and judge it, right?